Francis, the charismatic Argentine pontiff who redefined the modern papacy, died at the age of 88. Known as the People's Pope, Francis leaves behind a transformed Catholic Church, more compassionate and engaged with contemporary issues, yet still anchored to its ancient traditions. Take a look.
Shock, sorrow, and reverence. The world reels as Pope Francis, the People's Pope, breathed his last. His death marks the end of a papacy that shattered conventions, upended tradition, and left the Catholic Church forever changed.
Fratelli e sorelle, vi lascio grazie tante dell'accoglienza. Pregate per me.
Elected in 2013, he became the first pope from the Americas and the Southern Hemisphere. From the beginning, he made clear that his was a mission of proximity, not privilege. "My people are poor, and I am one of them," he once said. The 266th Pope refused the palatial apostolic apartments, choosing instead to live in a modest Vatican guest house. Before becoming Pope, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, born in Argentina to Italian immigrants, he worked various jobs, including a nightclub bouncer.
We feel enormous sadness. He was a pope who was very committed to the poor, to those in need. He was humble. He will be greatly missed.
The Argentinian pontiff ushered in a swathe of reforms over his 12-year papacy. Under his leadership, the Vatican underwent financial reforms, including the conviction of one of his own top aides, Cardinal Angelo Becciu, in a major financial scandal. His legislative impact was vast. He rewrote the Vatican Constitution and reshaped its legal system. For the late Pope Francis, love for humanity transcended religion. He visited refugees, kissed the feet of prisoners, and prayed at mosques and synagogues. 3 years ago, on a visit to Canada, he apologized to the indigenous people for how they were wronged at residential schools. Pope also appointed the first female Undersecretary of the Synod of Bishops, starting a seismic shift in a church long paralyzed by patriarchy.
It's a great disappointment, a great loss, a man who has innovated the church and a man who has left a great mark. And this, his absence, causes great pain.
If I had to describe Pope Francis, the most important thing would be his work for the unity of the church, his fraternity and humility. A man that was very close to the young people, a very sensible man in his words.
Francis denounced indifference shown to migrants and kept urging Europe and other countries to open their doors to those seeking better lives. The pontiff was outspoken about Israel's military campaign in Gaza, calling the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip very serious and shameful. From the bloodshed in Ukraine war to climate change, the Pope never minced his words.
Pope Francis was history's first Latin American pope. He was history's first Jesuit pope, and he was the first one to name himself after St. Francis of Assisi. That Franciscan friar was a real lover of nature, and that message really came through in the emphasis that Pope Francis placed on caring for the environment. He made climate change and the need to combat it a real hallmark of his papacy. He wrote an entire encyclical about the environment.
He remained hospitalized for 5 weeks, suffering from severe double pneumonia. This was his last public appearance on Easter Sunday, blessing the faithful at Vatican's St. Peter's Square.
Cari fratelli e sorelle, buona Pasqua.
Francis's desire to chart a different path was evident right to the end. With his decision to be buried not at St. Peter's Basilica, but in Rome's Santa Maria Maggiore Basilica. He will become the first pope in more than 100 years to be laid to rest outside the Vatican.
Arab states are enraged. An AI-generated video depicting the destruction of Islam's third holiest site, the Al-Aqsa mosque in occupied Jerusalem, it has now triggered massive anger and condemnation across the Arab states, inflaming tensions in a region that is already boiling. Social media accounts tied to Israeli far-right settler groups circulated a provocative video. It shows the Al-Aqsa mosque engulfed in flames before vanishing, and then replaced with the third Jewish temple. The video has drawn fierce condemnations from Arab states, warning Israel that this sort of digital incitement could potentially set the region ablaze. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry called it a calculated provocation, part of what it describes as Israel's systematic incitement to target both Christian and Muslim heritage in occupied East Jerusalem. Well, according to Palestinian Foreign Ministry, Israel's far-right government has grown increasingly emboldened by what it calls the silence of the global community in the face of its brutal ongoing military operations in Gaza. Jordan, which maintains custodianship over Jerusalem's Islamic and Christian holy sites, joined the outrage. Jordan's foreign ministry called the video racist and provocative and demanded the international community to immediately step in before matters spiral further. Qatar followed suit, warning that such provocations don't just insult Islamic sensitivities. In its words, and I'm quoting him here, it could majorly escalate violence in the region. And all these tensions are already visible. In recent months, hundreds of far-right Israelis have entered the Al-Aqsa compound. On Sunday, dozens of Israeli settlers toured the Al-Aqsa courtyard, reportedly performing rituals inside the compound. And earlier this month, Israel's far-right minister Itamar Ben-Gvir inflamed the situation further with his highly publicized visit to the site, which drew condemnation across Arab states. Well, under international law, East Jerusalem remains an occupied territory. Israel captured the area in the 1967 war and later annexed it. And that annexation remains unrecognized by the global community. And this is not the first time Israeli settlers have released an AI video of Al-Aqsa mosque burning. It has happened in the past as well, and that's in September last year. They circulated a similar video where Al-Aqsa mosque was in flames, with the video carrying a caption, "Coming soon in these days," a possible reference to the third Jewish temple. So, amidst an unrelentless war in Gaza that continues to see mass displacement and an increasing number of casualties, the latest AI-generated video of a burning Al-Aqsa mosque has only heightened tensions in the region further. Arab states now appear to have warned Israel, stop now or risk opening a front that not even AI-generated propaganda can control. Our next story is from Yemen. A deadly U.S. airstrike hit a residential area in Sana'a, Yemen, killing 12 people and injuring over 30 others. This is just the latest in the U.S.'s intensified campaign of strikes against Houthis. The Houthis said that the U.S. strike targeted the Farwa neighborhood market, and that's in Sana'a's Shub district. Footage aired by the Al Masirah news channel showed damaged cars and buildings in the latest U.S. strike against the Houthis. It also showed people screaming and holding what appeared to be a dead child. Others can be heard wailing on stretchers heading into a hospital. Strikes also targeted other areas of the country, including Yemen's Amran, Hodeidah, Marib and Sada areas.
By God, the missile arrived suddenly, and the boy was sent to buy something from the bakery. We only heard the explosion. I went searching for my son, and my brother had taken the rest of the family out of the house and moved them to another place. This morning, he brought them back home.
U.S. President Donald Trump ordered the intensification of strikes just last month in the biggest U.S. military operation in West Asia since he took office in January this year. Washington has vowed to keep attacking the Iran-aligned group until they stop attacking commercial shipping in the Red Sea. The strikes come a week after U.S. airstrikes hit the Ras Isa fuel port in Yemen. And that strike by the United States of America killed 74 people and injured 171. The American strikes also come amid resumption of talks that are happening in Rome between the U.S. and Iran, and that's over Tehran's nuclear program. Washington has linked this to its strikes in Yemen. Earlier on Sunday, a mass funeral was held in Yemen's Hodeidah province for the victims of U.S. airstrikes. This was on Saturday night, after the U.S. carried out 13 airstrikes on Hodeidah seaport and airport. Several public facilities were reportedly destroyed in that attack. Following the attacks, hundreds of residents in the coastal city of Hodeidah took to the streets on Sunday, calling for an end to U.S. strikes targeting civilians in Yemen, as well as civilian infrastructure.
The protest today, whether in Hodeidah or other provinces, is to condemn the U.S. aggression. It's a protest against the targeting of civilian objects and facilities that belong to the Yemeni people, not to any specific group, sect, or party.
Yemenis at the funeral also called for an international investigation, a global probe, and for those responsible to be held accountable. As mentioned earlier, the U.S. is targeting the Houthis because of the group's attacks on shipping in the Red Sea, which is a crucial global trade route. And according to reports, the Houthis are the last armed group in Iran's self-described axis of resistance that is capable of regularly attacking Israel. And the new U.S. operation against the Houthis under Trump has been described as more extensive than the attacks under former U.S. President Joe Biden. The American campaign against Houthis started when the group threatened to begin targeting Israel-linked ships again. And that's after Israel blocked aid from entering the Gaza Strip. And according to news agency AP, from November 2023 until this January, the Houthis have targeted more than 100 merchant vessels with missiles and drones. They have also been able to sink 2 of them, killing 4 sailors that they say are acting in support with Palestinians in Gaza. As a result of tensions in the Red Sea, the flow of trade through the strategic corridor, which typically sees around $1 trillion of goods move through it, has been greatly reduced. Well, from one war front to another, and we are now shifting our focus to the Russia-Ukraine war. Well, it looks like Russia is ramping up pressure on Ukraine's eastern front. Recently, Russia has reportedly redeployed drones, signaling what appears to be a preparation for a summer offensive in Ukraine's Donetsk region. With Ukraine peace talks stalled, it looks like Russia is now preparing for a long summer war. Reports suggest that Russia has transferred drone units from its Kursk region to the Toretsk area in Ukraine's Donetsk. According to analysis from the Institute for the Study of War, these units are currently operating towards a town called Kostyantynivka, and experts suggest that Russia may focus offensive on this area in the spring and summer of this year. And this does not come as a surprise, as fighting in eastern Ukraine has intensified recently. Kostyantynivka is located about 15 kilometers from the current front line. It is reportedly suffering from Russian shelling. The town is situated between 2 major defense points in the Donetsk region, which are Chasiv Yar and Toretsk. Just this past week, active fighting was reported at multiple locations along the front line. Hostilities continued in the border area between the 2 countries, with Russian troops making new advances in the Donbas region. They have now advanced on the flanks of Pokrovsk, which has been described as the largest strategic city, which is still under Ukrainian control. Recently, Russian troops have also expanded their zone of control to the southwest of the city, claiming to capture 2 villages there. And also a major factor in Russia's advances on the battlefield, it has been the extensive use of Gerin-2 kamikaze drones. Now, these drones have been credited for striking various military targets in Ukraine. And these Gerin-2 kamikaze drones, it has played an increasingly important role in Russian war efforts recently. These drones have reportedly served as key supplements to long-range missile strikes and sometimes substituting for more sophisticated munitions. What's more, the Geran's smaller counterpart, the Gerbera, has reportedly been upgraded. These smaller drones have been used alongside their larger counterparts, serving as decoys to uncover anti-aircraft positions and further exhaust ammunition without carrying explosives. Now, it appears that these smaller drones have now been converted into full-fledged kamikaze UAVs. As far as diplomacy is concerned, progress seems non-existent at this point of time between Ukraine and Russia. Just last Friday, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio warned that the United States could end its efforts to stop the Ukraine war within days if there are no signs of progress. He said that if it is not possible to end the war in Ukraine, then we need to move on. He said this as he departed for Paris, where he had held high-level talks with European and Ukrainian officials. Now, Rubio's comments just shows the mounting frustration within the Trump administration over the lack of progress in stopping the 3-year-old war. And this is despite the U.S. proposing a framework which reportedly includes Trump administration's willingness to recognize Russian control of Crimea. Well, later on Friday, President Trump also told reporters in the Oval Office that Rubio was right, but he did not provide a specific timeline for when the U.S. might withdraw from its efforts. He just said, and I'm quoting Trump here, "No specific number of days, but quickly, we want to get it done." Vice President J.D. Vance touched down in New Delhi earlier today for a high-stakes diplomatic visit. Amidst the sweltering Indian summer, Vance, accompanied by his wife Usha Vance and their 3 children dressed in traditional Indian attire, arrived at the Palam Air Force Station to a full ceremonial welcome, complete with a guard of honor and traditional folk dancers. The US Vice President's visit comes at a tense moment in global trade. The Trump administration has put the world on edge by imposing steep reciprocal tariffs on multiple countries, including India. US President Donald Trump has accused New Delhi of abusing tariff structures and announced a 27% tariff on Indian goods. That hike is currently on a 90-day pause and expires on July 9th. J.D. Vance and family received a red carpet welcome at Prime Minister Modi's official residence. The Indian Prime Minister was also seen giving a personal tour of his residence to the Vance family. Prime Minister Modi was seen sharing lighter moments with the US Vice President's 2 sons, Evan, Vivek, and daughter Mirabai. At the top of the agenda, reportedly, are bilateral trade deals. The White House has described the US Vice President's visit as focused on shared economic and geopolitical priorities. New Delhi says that Vance's visit can perhaps provide an opportunity for both the sides to review the progress in bilateral ties. Beyond diplomacy, the Vance family is also immersing itself in Indian culture. Usha Vance, the US Second Lady, traces her lineage to Andhra Pradesh. Earlier today, the Vances visited New Delhi's Akshardham temple and also the Cotton Emporium. And tomorrow, the Vance family head to Jaipur, where they will visit the Amer Fort. J.D. Vance is scheduled to deliver a speech at the Rajasthan International Center outlining the future of US-India ties under the Trump administration. And on Wednesday, the family heads to Agra to view the Taj Mahal and explore Shilpagram, which is an open-air market featuring Indian art and craft. And well, on Thursday, they fly back to the US. Prime Minister Modi was among the first foreign leaders to meet Trump after his inauguration. Since then, the 2 sides have aimed to double bilateral trade to $500 billion. Prime Minister Modi has signed off on deals to increase Indian imports of US oil and even gas. Since the start of this year, high-level US delegations have visited India. To name some, Tulsi Gabbard, Director of National Intelligence, made a visit, and so did Brendan Lynch, who is the Assistant Trade Representative for South and Central Asia. Well, US Vice President J.D. Vance's trip is just the latest such visit and perhaps the most symbolic, given that Trump is expected to visit India later this year for the Quad Summit alongside leaders from Japan and Australia. But for now, all eyes are on New Delhi. Can India's warm welcome thaw America's hard stance on tariffs? And will it lead to a new chapter in Indo-American ties? Let's now tell you what else is lined up for you on Gravitas tonight. We will tell you how the Boeing jets, it has now become the latest casualty in the tit-for-tat tariff between the US and China. Also later on the show, we will tell you how the United States of America and the Philippines have begun their joint military drills, and for the first time it includes full battle tests in a bid to simulate real-world combat in the face of regional security. Finally, we will tell you how a picture of Buddha's tooth relic has sparked police investigations in Sri Lanka. All that and a lot more lined up for you. Well, Beijing has test-fired a non-nuclear hydrogen bomb. The test comes amid rising tensions in the South China Sea. The test induces a chain reaction, fireball exceeding temperatures of 1,000 degrees Celsius. Our next story takes a look at how it perhaps could change the power dynamics.
In a world already teetering on the edge of chaos, from raging wars in Eastern Europe to West Asia and rising hostilities in the South China Sea. Beijing has just thrown a thunderbolt in the geopolitical arena. In a stunning display of power, Beijing confirms the successful detonation of a non-nuclear hydrogen bomb, a scientific feat that blurs the line between military signaling and psychological warfare. The implications of this test are far-reaching. While not a nuclear detonation, the hydrogen bomb, even without a nuclear trigger, demonstrates a mastery of advanced physics and engineering. It signifies the potential to miniaturize and weaponize hydrogen fusion technology, further complicating the global balance of power. This is about influence. The message is clear. China now possesses the ability to replicate the destructive force of nuclear weapons without triggering nuclear treaties or drawing direct retaliation. By mastering non-nuclear thermonuclear technology, Beijing sidesteps the global nuclear taboo while still flexing strategic muscle. It's a calculated escalation that threatens to redefine the rules of deterrence. Unlike nuclear weapons, this new class of fusion devices falls outside the regulatory grasp of treaties like the Non-Proliferation Treaty, meaning there's little stopping a new arms race built not on uranium but on fusion. Bureau Report, WION The World is One.
Well, the ongoing tariff-fueled trade war has prompted China to return brand-new Boeing 737 MAX jets, a move that shows the escalating economic tensions between China and the US. The Boeing jet, which was reportedly intended for Xiamen Airlines in China, landed back at the company's manufacturing hub in Seattle on Sunday. And then on Monday, a second jet reportedly returned from China. The Boeing jet has become a casualty in this tit-for-tat tariff war started by the US President Donald Trump. The 737 MAX in question was painted in the livery of Xiamen Airlines and was one of several 737 MAX jets, which are Boeing's best-selling model, that had been waiting at Boeing's Sushan Completion Center for final preparations and also delivery to China. Remember, earlier this month, Trump raised baseline tariffs on Chinese imports to 145%. In response, China imposed a 120% tariff on US goods. Now, for a Chinese airline taking delivery of a Boeing jet, the tariffs could majorly impact costs, especially when it is the new 737 MAX. and has a market value of around $55 million. This is according to IBA, which is an aviation consultancy. Reports indicate that Beijing is exploring ways to support airlines that lease Boeing jets, and they are now facing heightened expenses. Just last week, it was reported that the Chinese government had asked local airlines to pause their purchases of aircraft-related equipment and parts from American companies like Boeing. What's interesting is that China represents about 20% of the anticipated global demand for aircraft. Over the next 2 decades, as of the end of March, Boeing's order book reportedly included planes scheduled for delivery to Chinese companies, both commercial airlines and leasing firms. Now, it is unclear which party decided for the aircraft to return to the US. And neither Boeing nor Xiamen Airlines have commented on it yet. Just hours before Trump announced his so-called Liberation Day tariffs, Boeing CEO Kelly Ortberg had testified before US Senate hearing that the company sold about 80% of its planes globally and aimed to avoid a scenario in which certain markets become closed to us. At that time, Ortberg also mentioned that there was approximately $500 billion in backlog orders. And now, here's what reports are suggesting. The confusion surrounding the changing tariffs could leave many aircraft deliveries in limbo. Some airline CEOs have reportedly indicated that they would prefer to defer receiving planes rather than incur the increased duties. Well, amid the trade tensions between the US and China, Beijing on Monday issued a warning to other countries against limiting trade with China in order to gain relief from American tariffs. Well, the Chinese government has vowed to retaliate against those who side with the US. Responding to foreign media reports suggesting that Trump's administration was pressuring other countries to restrict their trade with China as a negotiating tactic. The Chinese Ministry of Commerce said, and I quote, "Appeasement will not bring peace and compromise will not earn respect. Seeking so-called exemptions by harming the interests of others for one's own selfish and short-sighted gains is like negotiating with a tiger for its skin in the end. It will only lead to a lose-lose situation." While the Trump administration has not officially confirmed any such plans, Trump has indicated that he is open to the idea. What's interesting is that before the latest tariff escalation, the US was the largest single country market for Chinese goods. Well, the United States of America and Philippines are strengthening their combat readiness. Both militaries have launched their most aggressive joint war drills, preparing for the possibility of direct conflict with China, especially around flashpoints like Taiwan and the disputed South China Sea. The annual Balikatan military exercise has entered uncharted regions this year. They now include full-scale battle simulations designed to test whether American and Filipino forces can operate side by side in an actual war zone, with the main aim of defending critical islands and maritime choke points from a potential Chinese assault. Well, more than 17,000 troops from both the countries are now participating in these war games. Troops will fire live rounds, intercept simulated missile threats, and also conduct island defense operations in areas that are strategically important to both the countries and fiercely contested by Beijing. While Washington's access to the Philippines is expanding now, Manila has now opened 4 additional military bases to US forces, bringing the total to 9, which will and can perhaps directly contain Chinese military expansion around the Philippines. This year's war drills also include a 10-day island defense mission involving the Batanes Island chain, the Philippines' northernmost region, which borders Taiwan. U.S. Marine Forces are also deploying anti-ship mobile missile launchers right into the Luzon Strait, marking the first time that they have put this kind of firepower in such close proximity to Chinese forces. The strait is a narrow stretch of sea that separates the Philippines from Taiwan. The two countries will also carry out coastal defense exercises on Palawan, the Philippine island that faces the South China Sea. In Balabac, a small islet now hosting a US-backed base, the two countries will conduct a 5-day security operations. Well, Balabac is located closely to the Second Thomas Shoal and Sabina Shoal, sites where China and the Philippines have clashed repeatedly in the past. Palawan will also see its beaches transformed into mock battlefields. US and Filipino troops will simulate repelling enemy landings in a live fire drill, the kind of scenario that would play out if China ever attempted to seize Philippines by force. The Chief of Staff of the Philippine Armed Forces said that these exercises between US and the Philippines will encompass multiple warfare capabilities, while a U.S. Marine Corps commander highlighted the cutting-edge systems being tested in the drills.
And BK-25 is set to introduce new capabilities that have been developed over the course of many, many years and spoken of already, frankly, here in the media. Things like the Navy and Marine Expeditionary Ship Interdiction System. Things like the Marine Air Defense Integrated System, MADIS, and the Army's medium-range capability, the Typhoon missile.
The spokesperson for China's foreign ministry accused the Philippines of undermining regional stability by aligning with foreign militaries and bringing in advanced weapons.
The Philippines, in collusion with countries outside the region, conducts large-scale military exercises, introduces and deploys strategic and tactical weapons, undermines regional strategic stability, damages the region's economic growth prospects, and openly stands on the opposite side to regional countries.
So the Indo-Pacific is now clearly a rehearsal stage for a potential war. Whether the strategic preparation is a deterrent or a prelude, that remains to be seen. All right, moving on. Iran is making major strides in its space ambitions, and it is doing so with the help of Russia. Iran has reportedly been constructing a massive space facility near the city of Chabad, located on the coast of the Gulf of Oman and strategically located close to the equator, which is extremely important because proximity to this reduces fuel consumption and also increases the efficiency of space launches. Well, according to a Bloomberg report, Iran is modeling this complex after Florida's Cape Canaveral. The 54-square-mile spaceport in Chabad is reportedly designed to accommodate powerful rockets capable of putting large spacecraft into orbit. The facility was originally scheduled to become operational last year, but delays have pushed its timeline forward now. Well, Tehran's partnership with Moscow, it has deepened majorly in recent years. Early this year, Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian signed a comprehensive strategic agreement with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Just last October, Russia helped Iran put its first privately manufactured satellites into orbit. Russia has also been extensively using Iranian Shahed drones in attacks against Ukraine. And according to experts quoted in the Bloomberg report, Russia is also sharing its decades-long expertise in aerospace with Iran. And this reportedly is sparking serious alarm in Washington and Tel Aviv. Last month, General Anthony Cotton, commander of U.S. Strategic Command, said that the same systems used to launch satellites can shorten the timeline for manufacturing intercontinental ballistic missiles. That means, with the help of Russia now, Iran's space program could double as a military upgrade. Iran reportedly aims to place 20 internet satellites into the orbit. Well, according to experts, with improved satellite guidance, Tehran's ability to launch long-range precision strikes would increase dramatically. Experts said that this new capability could allow Iran to guide its missiles with greater accuracy and faster response times than ever before. A senior Iranian official revealed last November that Tehran plans to inject approximately $11 million into its national space agency. For Iran, space may be the new battleground for dominance. And with Russia as its partner, Tehran may just be gearing up for a bigger role, not just on Earth, but beyond it. Well, moving on and shifting our focus to Sri Lanka, the country's police has now launched an investigation after a picture of Buddha's tooth relic went viral on social media. The Criminal Probe Department has been directed to probe whether the picture was taken during one of the rare display of the ancient relic or not. The object is currently kept at the Temple of Truth located in Kandy. It went to the public display for the first time since March 2009 and is considered highly sacred. Devotees are allowed to see it only with tight security around it. And of course, taking pictures of it is strictly prohibited. Sri Lankan police has considered this incident a serious security lapse, as everyone is frisked over before being allowed to the temple area, which is guarded by plain-clothed officers. The CID is now probing if the picture was taken by a worshipper during one of the current exhibition or if it is simply a doctored image. As per an estimate, about 125,000 people have worshipped the relic, and that's on the first day of its display, which was open for just 2.5 hours. The 10-day viewing of the relic will end on the 27th of April. The majority of Sri Lanka's population is Buddhist, and they believe that Buddha's left canine is enshrined at the Temple of Truth more than its religious significance. The object is considered a symbol of state sovereignty. Well, in news from India's Jammu and Kashmir, at least 5 people have been killed after heavy rain triggered flash floods in Ramban and Riyasi districts. The district administration has closed down schools and colleges in Ramban in view of the inclement weather. Visuals from the area show a grim aftermath: submerged vehicles, torn roofs, and roads littered with debris. Well, the decision comes as rescue and restoration efforts continue across the district. Several teams of NDRF, SDRF, police and locals are engaged in relief and rescue operations. Officials have also suspended traffic on the Jammu-Srinagar National Highway after landslides and shooting stones blocked multiple points on the route. Earlier, torrential rains, hailstorms, landslides and heavy snowfall in high altitudes caused widespread destruction and damage to public and private properties. Well, higher reaches including Gurez, Kargil, Sonmarg have seen fresh snowfall, disrupting power supply in areas like Kargil, while Kargil, Srinagar and Kargil, Zanskar roads remain shut due to snow accumulation and also safety concerns.
20 अप्रैल 2025
Well, the Weather Department has issued warnings for avalanches and flash floods, urging caution. Weather experts forecast that heavy rains in Ramban and Kishtwar will continue. Reacting to the incident, Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister emphasized on the relief efforts being undertaken by the state government and further assured that the administration was working round the clock to restore normalcy in Ramban. He also added that relief camps were being set up and essential supplies were distributed to the affected families. Well, the Indian Weather Department had earlier warned of severe weather between April 18th and 20th due to an active western disturbance, forecasting heavy rain, thunderstorms and gusty winds across Jammu and Kashmir. On to the world of business now. They are young, they are rich, and they're not buying stocks or bonds. South Korea's elite are going all in on something bolder, riskier, and truly digital. Take a look at this story to find out how cryptos are taking over portfolios around the world.
Once considered a fringe fascination for digital renegades, cryptocurrency is quietly becoming the asset of choice among South Korea's high net worth crowd. A new report by Hana Bank reveals a surprising remix in the investment playlists of the country's elite. Nearly 1 in 3 people with $700,000 are now holding crypto, averaging investments of $29,500 per investor. It's a shift that speaks volumes. This isn't just a speculative fad, it's a portfolio pivot, one block at a time. And who's driving it? A generation of wealthy, tech-native investors under 40, who are less impressed with bonds and more intrigued by blockchain. Despite South Korea's famously tight crypto regulation, the appetite for digital assets is unmistakable. Trading profit is still part of the pitch, but the narrative is shifting. Only 49% of wealthy investors cited returns as their top motivation. Instead, crypto's appeal lies in its accessibility, ease, and increasingly its legitimacy as a long-game asset class. What's perhaps most telling is the conviction during downturns. Nearly 16% said they'd increase their crypto holdings if the economy weakens. That's twice the number who'd cut back. From Gangnam to global, the new wave of South Korean wealth isn't just watching Web3 from the sidelines, it's logging in. Whether it's NFTs, tokenized real estate, or next-gen financial tools, the crypto shift is already happening in Seoul's penthouses and boardrooms. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
France's National Terrorism Office has launched an investigation into a wave of coordinated attacks at multiple prisons across the country. Officials suspect that the attacks are being carried out by drug traffickers and criminal gangs, possibly influenced by drug cartels across France. So in many attacks, the perpetrators sprayed graffiti with initials DDPF, which means Rights for French Prison Inmates. Investigators have said that perpetrators of the attacks caught on video were dressed more like drug gang foot soldiers rather than far-left militants who tend to come from a different social background. Just last week, at least 9 prison facilities were targeted with incidents including arson. Not just that, the home of a prison guard was also attacked with a vehicle set ablaze. While an arrest was made, the link to the attacks remain unconfirmed. Officials now believe that this is in retaliation to its heightened efforts to curb cocaine trafficking across France. The French Parliament is currently preparing to approve a new law which will increase the power of police probing drug cartels, drug dealers, and also toughening prison conditions for convicted traffickers. And lastly, creating a new prosecutor's office responsible for investing organized crime. Rising cocaine imports from South America to Europe have sparked drug-linked violence in France, where seizures of the drug are at a historic high. According to police officials, the drug gangs are traditionally based in cities such as Marseille and have now expanded into smaller regional towns unused to drug violence. In February this year itself, the Interior Minister of France announced record cocaine seizures of 47 tons in the first 11 months of last year, more than double of what was seized in 2023. And in his words itself, France perhaps has been hit by a white tsunami that has rewritten the rules of the criminal landscape. Well, what does your ideal day look like when the sun sets and the day comes to a close? Do you feel fulfilled, or is there a lingering sense that you were meant for something more? What if I tell you that the experts have actually figured out what a perfect day looks like? Researchers have analyzed thousands of routines, behaviors and mood patterns, and they have now mapped out how to structure your day to maximize happiness, energy, and also peace of mind. So the question being, what does a perfect 24 hours look like? Well, the result is a precise formula which adds up to the perfect day. 6 hours of family time, 6 hours of family time, 2 hours with friends, 1.5 hours socializing, 2 hours of exercise, 1 hour of eating and drinking. What about work? Well, scientists at the University of British Columbia say that a work day of less than 6 hours is the key to a perfect day. And lastly, only 60 minutes of screen time. So if you have been doom scrolling for hours, hoping to maybe unwind after a long day, you might be doing just the opposite. Now let's tell you how the study was conducted. The research team analyzed data from the American Time surveys. These surveys track how Americans spend each hour of the day, and using AI, the researchers identified which activities made people feel like they were having a better than typical day. The study found that while socializing is important, its benefits can only be seen when done for 2 hours. Anything more than that will not lead to any extra happiness. However, when it comes to spending time with true friends, the more time you spend with them, the better, as it brings joy. Well, the study also says that ultimately what this formula brings to mind are the adages. The recipe for happiness is all about having the right balance in life. And that's all that we have in today's edition of Gravitas. Thanks very much for staying with us. You are watching WION The World. Stay tuned.
Imagine a world where owning your dream asset is just a click away, where wealth is no longer exclusive to the few. Tokenization, the game changer, transforming assets into digital opportunities. A revolutionary technology opening doors to a new era of investment. Don't miss Token Money Magnet, a bold initiative by Culp Foundation. Only on WION World is One.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching WION Pulse with me, Molly Gambhir. A quick look first at the top stories making headlines around the world.
He was a good man, worked hard, he loved the world, and it's an honor to do that.
US President Donald Trump praises Pope Francis as a good man who loved the world and orders state and federal flags around the country to fly at half-staff. This as he presides over an Easter ceremony at the White House. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vows to deliver a powerful response to Yemen's Houthi rebels, says any attack against Israel will not go unanswered. Newly appointed US envoy to Israel urges Hamas to sign a ceasefire deal, says aid can enter Gaza once the deal is sealed. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US Vice President J.D. Vance hold bilateral talks in New Delhi. Vance, along with wife Usha Vance and children, take a tour of the Prime Minister's residence. India imposes a 12% tariff on some steel products to stem unbridled imports. The tariffs would be applicable for 200 days with effect from tonight. The US and Philippines kick off 3 weeks of joint exercises that will simulate a full-scale battle scenario. This as the two allies seek to deter Beijing's ambitions in the disputed South China Sea. Yelena Ostapenko stuns world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka to win the Stuttgart Open crown. It is the Latvian's first title on clay since winning the French Open in 2017. Tributes have been pouring in from around the world for Pope Francis, who breathed his last at the age of 88. This comes just a day after he made a brief appearance at St. Peter's Square for Easter Sunday celebration.